figure below consists of a square and two semicircles. You have a square on the inside, two semicircles on the outside. What is the outside perimeter in centimeters of this figure? So the perimeter is the distance all the way around an object. The outside perimeter of the square, not the entire perimeter of the square. I need to figure the outside perimeter of the square. So you have two outside measurements being 8 and 8. So 8 plus 8, that would be 16. That is the outside perimeter of the square. Then you have these two semicircles. Well, if you put them together, you have one circle. So the circumference of a circle is pi times diameter, or some refer to it as 2 pi r, because 2 times the radius is the same thing as the diameter. So either pi times diameter or 2 pi r. The diameter of this circle, if you put it together as one, the diameter of the circle is 8. So the circumference of the circle, if you put those two semicircles together as one, the circumference would be 8 pi. So there's your outside perimeter. You have an 8 pi, that's the two semicircles, and you have the outside perimeter of the square, which would be 16. 8 pi plus 16, that is the outside perimeter of this figure, or 16 plus 8 pi in this case, which is letter B. In the figure below, points E and F are the midpoints of sides AD and BC. So you see E and F, those are the midpoints of AD and BC. Point G is the intersection of AF and BE. So point G is the intersection, you can see, of AF and BE. That's given to you on the drawing. And point H is the intersection of CE and DF. So this point H is the intersection of CE and DF. You can also see that in the drawing. The interior of ABCD, except for the interior of EGFH, is shaded. What is the ratio of the area of EGFH to the area of the shaded region? We could draw a center line from E to F. That center line creates 8 congruent triangles. You now have 8 congruent triangles when you drop that line down from F to E. And with those 8 congruent triangles, 2 are not shaded and 6 are shaded. Remember, those are congruent triangles. 2 are not shaded, 6 that are shaded. What is the ratio of the area of EGFH to the area of the shaded region? So the ratio of the unshaded to the shaded would be 2 to 6. 2 are not shaded and 6 are shaded. So the ratio of unshaded to shaded is 2 to 6, and that is 1 to 3. What is the ratio of the area of EGFH to the area of the shaded region? That would be 1 to 3, letter G. The coordinates of the endpoints of CD in the standard xy coordinate plane are -4, -2, and 14, 2. What is the x-coordinate of the midpoint of CD? Well, midpoint means halfway between. So if you're finding the midpoint between two x-coordinates, you would add the x-coordinates together and divide by 2. If you're finding the midpoint of two y-coordinates, you would add the y-coordinates together and divide by 2. That is the midpoint formula. If you're finding the midpoint, add the coordinates together, divide by 2. So the midpoint formula is adding the x's together, dividing by 2, adding the y's together, dividing by 2. That creates the midpoint formula. Don't get hung up on formulas. You're just adding the two coordinates together and dividing by 2. That's giving the midpoint. So to find the midpoint between -4, -2, and 14, 2, you would add the x coordinates together and divide by 2, and also add the y coordinates together, divide by 2. Again, do not get hung up on formulas. That causes you more problems. Just understand what's going on. We're adding the x coordinates, dividing by 2, adding the y coordinates, dividing by 2. So -4 plus 14, that would be 10 over 2. And -2 plus 2, that is 0 over 2. So the midpoint between these 2 points would be 10 over 2 reduces to 5, and 0 over 2 reduces to 0, but we're just looking for the x coordinate. And one thing to notice is the y coordinate of the midpoint is one of the choices. The x-coordinate of the midpoint is what we're looking for. It's what's being asked. The x-coordinate of the midpoint is 5. Once again, add the x's together, divide by 2. That gives you the midpoint. Letter C. What is the surface area in square inches of an 8-inch cube? An 8-inch cube is a cube with all edges being 8. Now, surface area means the amount of area around the outside of the surface. So there's a couple ways you could do this. One way is you could find the area of each face and then add them all up, but they're all the same. So just find the area of one face and multiply by 6, because all 6 faces on that cube are the same. So to find the area of one face, it's in the shape of a square, because it is a cube. Just multiply length times width, or square the 8, it's going to be 64. So the area of one face is 64. Remember, you have 6 of those that are the same. So multiply that 64 by 6, and that will give you the total surface area, which is 384. Letter G. The equations below are linear equations of a system where a, b, and c are positive integers. Which of the following describes the graph of at least one such system of equations in the standard xy coordinate plane? So you have these two equations, ay plus bx equals c, also ay minus bx equals c. You need to decide, are they parallel, are they intersecting, or are they a single line, which means are they the same line? And you may be mixing some of those choices together. So if you're talking about parallel lines, whether they're parallel, whether they're the same line, whether they're just intersecting, you probably want to get this in both of these in slope-intercept form so that you can look at the slope and also the y-intercept. So to get that first equation in slope-intercept form, I'm going to subtract bx and then divide by a. In that first equation, if you subtract bx and divide by a, you have y equals negative b over a times x plus c over a. In the second equation, add bx to both sides and then divide by a. Get y equals b over a times x plus c over a. First of all, notice the slopes. The slopes are not the same. One's positive, one is negative, but the y-intercepts are the same. So with one slope being positive, one being negative, they're not going to be parallel because parallel lines would have the same slope. Also, if they are a single line, if they are the same line, they would have the same slope and same y-intercept. So parallel lines would have the same slope, different y-intercepts, but a single line or the same line would have the same slope and same y-intercept. So what we're looking at here is we just have two different slopes. We do have the same y-intercept, but we have two different slopes. So if you have two different slopes with the same y-intercept, they are simply two intersecting lines. They are actually intersecting at the y-intercept. So just two intersecting lines, that is letter B. According to the measurements given in the figure below, which of the following expressions gives the distance in miles from the boat to the dock? So you have to figure out the distance in miles from the boat to the dock. You're given this angle of 52 degrees, and you were given the distance from the dock to the lighthouse is 30 miles. So in relation to this 52-degree angle, I want to look at these sides. We're going to be using sine, cosine, and tangent. Well, not all of them, sine, cosine, or tangent. But you have to look at how this 52-degree angle is in relation to the distance from the boat to the dock, also the distance from the dock to the lighthouse. That dock to the lighthouse is right next to the 52-degree angle, and it's not the hypotenuse. So that 30 miles is what's called the adjacent side in relation to this 52-degree angle. The boat to the dock, it's not the hypotenuse. It is opposite that 52-degree angle. So the boat to the dock is opposite. The dock to the lighthouse here is 30 miles is adjacent. Those are the two sides we're using. So we're using opposite and adjacent. If you remember anything about sine, cosine, and tangent, opposite and adjacent, we're going to be using tangent. So boat to the dock is opposite. The 30 miles is adjacent. We're going to be using the tangent. And tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent. You can about guess right now what the answer is going to be, because the only one up there using tangent is 30 times the tangent of 52. So I can tell you right now that's going to be the answer. And if you're actually taking the ACT on your own, you would stop right there and jump to the answer and move on to the next question. Don't waste any more time on this. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. You could say the tangent of 52 is equal to this opposite, which is boat to the dock, over adjacent, which is 30. But you need to solve this for the boat to the dock. So you have to get boat to the dock essentially by itself. Think of that as a variable. How would you get that by itself? You would multiply both sides by 30 because you have to move this 30 to the other side. It's being divided right now by 30. So if you multiply both sides by 30, the boat to the dock is equal to 30 times the tangent of 52. Like I told you the first time, letter F. Circle graph below shows the distribution of registered voters by age for a community. Registered voters are randomly selected from this distribution to be called for jury duty. What are the odds of in the age range to not in the age range that the first person called for jury duty is in the age range of 25 to 35 years? So here you have distribution of registered voters by age. You have the circle graph. You have the age ranges. So you're looking at in the age range of 25 to 35 versus not in the age range. When in the age range is all black here, it's 25 to 35, that's 42%. Not in the age range would be all of the others. So the ratio of in the age range to not in the age range would be 42% to all of these others added together, and all of those others added together is 58. So you're looking at 42 to 58, and you look at the answer choices, that's not one of the answer choices. So 42 to 58 doesn't show up here. Think about reducing. Does that reduce to anything? If you wrote that in the form of a fraction, 42 over 58, would that reduce? Yes, it would. 21 over 29, or 21 to 29 in this case, which happens to be letter D.